Hope all of you are reading newspapers in the last 1 week.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we'll see something interesting. So questions from today's newspaper for mains will be like this: what are the various issues of security concerns, or what are the various security concerns in Northeast India? That can be one thing. Second thing can be, what are the major outcomes of Naga Peace Treaty 2015 and its implications? Okay. These two can be major questions. One is about internal security in relation to entire Northeast. Next one is Naga insurgency in specific city. And the third one is Naga issue or the demand for Greater Nagalim is a political issue, right? Is demand for Greater Nagalim is a political issue. So can we solve this particular issue with political understanding? Now, so not going too deeply into this particular topic today, we will just briefly have an understanding. Greater Nagalim. There is a demand called as Greater Nagalim, LIM. Now, it's a concept called as shared sovereignty. They are demanding something called as shared sovereignty, right? They are actually demanding for independence, more or less. Greater Nagalim can be asymmetrical federalism, but as of now, what we have is indirect shared sovereignty, right? They consider Nagaland as a particular country of its own. So Fizeau, Anagami Fizeau, in 1947 itself, he declared Nagaland as a independent country. So from there onwards, the conflict is going. It is one of the largest conflicts or the longest conflicts in India. 370 is threat to India because of asymmetrical federalism. So if you see one school that they think whenever we give separate freedom to a particular pocket of people, it might translate into separatist movement, or they might demand for independent nation. So that is why they don't encourage special provisions. But one of the demand of the Naga groups in recent times is separate flag, right, and constitution. Separate flag itself is a issue in Jammu and Kashmir. So in Jammu and Kashmir, we are saying we will revoke separate flag and separate constitution, but we will be willing to give a separate flag and constitution to Naga groups. It won't be possible, right? So Indian government is saying peaceful solutions are the best solutions. Now, second problem is instruments have become institutions. I told you all these Naga movements have one goal, that is to create a separate Naga limb. Now that they have realized that this won't be possible, what they have started doing is extorting the developmental money. Right? There is a concept called as developmental money. What is developmental money? You give some money for development. Let's say in the Naga interior areas, schools, and all these things. So what do these groups do? They take all the money. Okay, these groups occupy the money. Even if it is given to a government department, the government department will be extorted. They will show guns, right, for the development, the contractors, the individuals. Everybody has to pay some tax, parallel tax to these Naga groups. After that, these groups will start giving donations to churches, local development. You know, it's government money going into my pocket and I'm giving the money. So people will feel that I'm the benefactor. It's actually government of India's money that is pumped into Nagaland being taken, hijacked by these extremist groups. Okay, because of that, I enjoy a lot of privilege and power. I hope you are able to understand so far. So these groups don't want peace in the long run because their income sources will be dried up. So that's the major issue here. Indian government wants long-term peace. These groups want status quo. So splinter groups will be created every few years. So if you see the history of Nagaland from Fizeau all the way till the recent groups, there are so many splinter groups. Every group, the next generation will be replacing the older groups and they will be creating a new group. It's a chain of events, cycle. Now, how do we break this cycle? Only through negotiation and development. Unfortunately, what happened in this particular Moi area is collateral damage. Yes, bad intel. The army, the paramilitary groups had a very bad information and they assumed that these are insurgents and they started firing on these people, and it led to a lot of vicious cycles. If you think about it, now this killing by the Indian army or Indians will be used by the insurgent groups as a fodder material. See how they treat us. they consider as outsiders. So this will feed the insurgent groups for next 4 or 5 years. So unfortunately, collateral damage will always have long-term implications. So what is the best case scenario here for India or Indian government per se? Because Nagaland is also India, we cannot say it's outside India. The best way forward for Indian government is to and gain back the trust as soon as possible, because trust lost now probably can be restitched. But if we give enough time for these insurgent groups to create narrations, okay, that will lead to a lot of ramifications. And government of India should also show some sincerity in bringing the people to the book. Like, let's say someone took a wrong decision, he or she should be punished accordingly, and that will create some sense of justice to the families. So it's the families that have to be reconciled. If we reconcile the families, automatically insurgent groups cannot do anything. Okay. Clear? So one day we will sit and discuss the entire Naga issue. It's hardly. Nagalim is a concept. It's a territory where the Nagas believe. Nagalim, I don't think so. No. Yes. Yes, that is what I'm saying. To bring them to the book means they have to be punished properly accordingly. If they have done some grave, see, these are bona fide mistakes. Let's say these are bona fide mistakes. The problem is if I don't punish them, it's like encouraging them. If I punish them, morale will be down. So we have to exactly identify what happened, where did it go wrong, which standard operating procedure failed, because you cannot just randomly fire on any truck, right? So there must be very good intelligence, and we have to identify where it has gone wrong. Think from all the stakeholders, right? The villagers, the army, the insurgents, everybody is involved. The government, the interlocutors have to be involved. Yes. Local leaders, because even the groups know that there is no long-term solution. They cannot go separately away from India. Think about it. Even if we agree to Greater Nagalim, they will be sandwiched between India and China. So again, they have to either live with India or with China. And you know, China, what does China do? Is very good in sinification. That means tries to homogenize everyone. Yes or no? You have to adapt to the Chinese culture. There is no separate culture. But if you remember, India has always encouraged you to survive on your own. The tribal Panchashil can be reinvoked. 5th and 6th schedule also can be reinvoked. If you go back into the history, you can also see all the way from Simon Commission. Okay, the Nagas went and met Simon Commission for separate Naga. Long story. Naga used to be part of us, right? So and whenever I say Naga, always remember it's not a homogeneous group. There are huge number of tribes, just like Afghanistan, as for a comparison sake. Whenever I say Naga, they are a group of tribals, at least 30 to 40. Okay, different anyway in 20,000, say 6 group of tribes living together. They are called as Nagas. Within them, they have power struggles. Within them, they have a lot of issues. Some are closer to India, some are against India. So it's a mix of a lot of things: ethnicity, cultural diversity, development, inequalities within the groups. So cocktail. But for UPSC purposes, just remember the macro themes. The only solution is the peace deal has to be implemented. But the outcome of the peace deal is kept more. Government of India did not reveal what they agreed. What are the main question in this particular article? What are the prelims question in this particular article, if any? Right? And you can also link it to the same issue of the Northeast region and the migration. You can also link Naga issue into two things. One is the partition. The first one is Indian partition with Pakistan, that has an impact in the Naga area. Next one is the partition of East Pakistan, that is creation of Bangladesh. That also have a lot of ramifications in the entire Northeast region. Migration. Migration is a common phenomenon, right? Whenever partition happens, huge amount of refugees came into the country and settled. So when you take Assam security issue is more about language, the Bengali versus Assami. It's not about Hindu Muslim. Always remember, whenever we speak about Assam, it's more about language, the identity of Assami and Bengal. So they are not, they not only hate Bengalis, okay, or Muslims alone. They hate even Hindus who speak Bengali. So it's more about language identity, because there is a demographic change in Assam. The identity of Assam has changed because of these refugees and migration. And Nagaland was part of Assam. So even now, there is a lot of implication in the present days country or politics because of this migration. So all these are called as historical baggages. We cannot go and solve them overnight, right? So it is a long time taking process, and everybody involved should be sincere. Unfortunately, either the government is not sincere. When the government is sincere, the insurgent groups are not sincere. So that is why these are not only political issues, these are socio-political economic issues also. They have long range of ramifications. Now, mains question: sedition, freedom of speech in India is being throttled by draconian laws or colonial era laws. Do you agree? Sedition. Sedition is a tool used against press to suppress it. Yes or no? Time and again, Supreme Court has given multiple judgments saying sedition cannot be invoked just like that. Yes or no? There has to be some ground level action. There are certain parameters that Supreme Court has mentioned. In spite of all the judgments, sedition is being used very frequently. The best proof for that is conviction rate. Conviction rate is a proof for my argument that sedition is being misused. How? The court has to say yes, it's sedition. The conviction rate of sedition is one of the lowest. Okay, so low conviction means the court has to say yes, it's a case of sedition. Arresting under sedition is one thing, proving it in the court is one more thing. I think it's in less than 3%. Okay, so that shows clearly that sedition is being misused. See, that is the beauty of India, right? Everything have its own implications. The signboards will have ramifications, especially in sensitive areas. For example, here they are saying that the holding of a government scheme was only in Assami, right? Then they wanted to have it in Bengali. For normal people, the language of the board does not matter. Yes or no? But when there are existing fault lines, they create a new narration. So that is where Hyderabad Metro is a very good example. It has signboards in all the three languages: Hindi, English, Urdu, Telugu also, I guess. Four languages. Four languages. So no complications whatsoever. So if we go to South Indian states like Tamil Nadu or sometimes Karnataka, the boards may or may not be in English. They are in Kannada or Tamil, right? So that might create some rift. So as an administrator, I'm just giving you a hint that if you are genuinely interested in mixing the society, you should focus on such trivial things also. For example, if you go to Tirumala, a lot of boards are only in Telugu. Yes, that creates a problem for North Indian tourists. Personally, I have seen people get confused. Okay, things might have changed. It's been more than 3 years. I am not sure, but just giving you the thought process. Okay, as an administrator, tomorrow you should become IAS officer, ED of Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam. You can do all these things. Okay. We'll discuss the Taliban. I'm not sure, but potential mains question. What is the need for National Judicial Infrastructure Authority of India? There are better questions to be framed from judiciary, but let's, if you are writing mains or if you want to write some fodder material within the mains, you can use the infrastructure as a very important thing. Even for patriarchy also you can use it, or the need for development. So all of you can clearly understand that National Judicial Infrastructure Authority. Judicial infrastructure means courts should have good infrastructure. So normally we assume courts have good infrastructure, but this article brings out a lot of data. For example, as much as 26% of the court complexes do not have separate ladies' toilets. Okay, so 25% of the courts in India do not have infrastructure for women. So this is a clear argument why we should have more women in judiciary. Yes. Or all India judicial services, right? So infrastructure. Next, records. See, criminal justice system, justice denied is justice delayed is justice denied. So why is it being denied? Because of lack of infrastructure, lack of support systems. There are multiple reasons, and that is why Chief Justice of India is saying infrastructure is a very, very essential thing. And he wants the parliament to pass a bill in this winter session to give more power to the judiciary. So all the pending cases might be reduced because of such extra support from the state. Oh, money, yes, giving. Buddy, please mute. Right. See, again, it's the executive's choice, right? Executive is giving the money to the judiciary to build up the infrastructure. So we were supposed to talk about artificial intelligence supporting the judge. Okay, that is a plan we have in India. But this data says that Indian judges have less access to computers. Forget about artificial intelligence. Right? So what does these things tell you? For infrastructure. Yes.
The other day there was an article advocating the need of Nation Court of Appeals.
Arbitration Council also yesterday, Chief Justice was saying, right, arbitration should be there. Anybody who is worthy of respect should be giving judgments. So the ultimate point is judiciary is having a lot of burden, and we have to ease as much burden as possible on the judiciary for the system to go as smoothly as possible. As long as judiciary have this kind of support system, let's say for example I want to summon him, I will give notice, it will be sent through the post, he may or may not have seen it, again tarik pe tarik, it gets delayed, further delayed. So all these things should be avoided as much as possible. So see, the summary, the judicial infrastructure is the best gift that we can think of giving to the country by 75th year of independence. What will happen? See, in reality, just assume, if you want to take a printout also, let's hypothetically assume there is a government office. Sometimes things get stopped from as trivial things as lack of printers. So no, there is no one to sign. There is no printer. So for us, it might look very, very trivial, but people who are working inside the system, they will understand the problems. Obviously, Chief Justice must have seen a lot of courtrooms in his career, right? So that is why he's trying to bring some kind of reform. The government is also having a lot of interest in supporting him. So that might become an important topic. But again, as I have said, if the topic directly does not become an important question, it has a lot of value addition which can be used in any judiciary related questions. Fodder material. Again, the report is not official report or a government report. It might have a lot of vested interests also. So keep an open mind. But the thing is, if it is true, what should be done? If it is not true, what should be done? Yes. And unfortunately, the two states that are topping is either Uttar Pradesh or Karnataka. Both of them have attacks. Mob attacks. Places of worships have been damaged. And people were not allowed to be congregated. So group of people coming together in different religious denominations is a issue. And the ramification is all of them are ruled by certain political party. Yes. No. We can summarize both the editorial and this particular lead article in less than 5 lines. What are they?
be the bedrock for being.
Think of this as a study, both these articles. Who are the stakeholders? Think.
Media.
Media. Okay.
Experts.
Okay.
International institutions.
International institutions. Okay. The governments of various countries. Okay. Think of the stakeholders who are part of the game, and your responsibility is to do. There is a Telugu word, right? Parakaya pravesam. That means it's your responsibility to be in the shoe of every person, every stakeholder there. Yes, you don't. If you are South African government, you don't want a variant to be named after you, right? South African variant or Chinese virus. Yes, so that is not something that I would like to be called as. Yes, especially speaking, Delta is supposed to be Indian variant. We have exported Delta, but we didn't get the credit. Atmanirbhar Bharat. No? So we named it as Delta. We exported it to the world. The world is having a lot of problems.
So according to this article, the stakeholders could be the first world countries and the global south.
South, North, South divide. Developed, developing nation, North, South. Okay. Then what are the other keywords you can think of this particular article from these two editorials? See, the simple story is no to boosters. There is no empirical data to boosters. Boosters are not going to help anyone. The best case scenario is to vaccinate as many number of people as possible. The third one is India is capable of creating such number of vaccines. We do have the infrastructure. We do have the technology. The fourth one is behavioral change. COVID appropriate behavior that has to be reinforced now. It doesn't matter whether the variant is deadly or not. Okay, can we stop if the variant is deadly? No. If we just imagine go for a lockdown, or if the variant is really deadly, like the second wave, okay, what will happen to the economy? Yes or no? The collapse will be unimaginable throughout the world. Okay, so there is no option for us but to prevent it as much as possible. Just like that, we cannot do. So COVID appropriate behavior is a very crucial thing. Next one is use of technology. Genome sequencing. Yes or no? The article does not actually mention that, but Indian policy making or the global policy making should be dependent on genome sequencing. Every COVID test that is happening in the world should be updated as soon as possible. Genome sequencing will be done, and we will know whether the virus is actually traveling in different directions. Okay, and what should be the basis for the policy decision? If the virus is going to be virulent, okay, see, we never believe government numbers, right? Only 25 cases of this particular variant are in India. We don't know, it might be 2,500 or 25 really. Yeah, but genome sequencing will give us a clear-cut picture and whether it is really impactful. Is it a mild symptoms one, or is it having a lot of problems? Okay, so the government responsibility is to create that mental strength in the mind of the people that you should not be too worried. That is the first and most important thing, not to create panic. Yes or no? But there is already a kind of panic in the society. That is exactly what these people are trying to bring out. If government's response is on par just like the first wave, then we haven't actually learned anything.
Yes.
Yes or no? Already people have started fearing that there will be a third lockdown. Yes, there will be a travel ban. There should be international travel ban. All these things. But are we actually discussing about whether we have checked the oxygen cylinders? All the oxygen, whatever we have installed in the second wave, are they working? Do we have access to all those things? Are we using genome sequencing appropriately? Because in the first wave and second wave, India was one of the lower ranking countries in updating the genome sequencing data. We were not actually using the genome sequencing, but Britain has used it as a policy tool to ban the flights. Only when Britain had the proof that yes, because of India's travel, this particular variant is spreading in the country. Okay, it has gone for flight ban and all those things. Or else we are just going for a populist measure. We are killing probably a mosquito with a hammer, or vice versa is true. Or we are trying to kill a elephant with a hammer. It won't work. So we need to exactly know it through science, not through fear mongering or through typical approach. Yeah. These are the major takeaways. And second thing is, why are people still not getting the 2 doses of vaccination? Vaccine is available. Yes or no? Nowadays, nobody is complaining that I don't have access to vaccine. Vaccine is available. Still, why this population has been fully vaccinated? What should we do? So that should be the major area of focus. And India also have a responsibility for global south. So that is what the editorial argues, right? Vaccine Maitri. Once we have started Vaccine Maitri, again there is a third wave. We cannot stop the vaccination to the global south. We will be the laughing stock of the world, because every time we say Vaccine Maitri, there is a wave. We will stop the vaccine production. So what are we doing to ramp it up? And there is no global consensus, right? There is no global leadership on the vaccination dealing. That is also a serious problem. We have to bring everybody onto the same page. Just 15 days ago, I think finally India decided to go for international opening of the international travel, right? After a long wait, we have just decided that now we cannot again shut it down. The only people that might be happy are software engineers. Okay, one more year of work from home. Hello. Yes. More time to invest in Bitcoin, stock markets. Yes.
So in the alliances that came during the second wave,
Gavi.
Gavi, would they be functioning now?
See that they will be functioning. Gavi is forever right now. It's not only created for COVID. All the future pandemics will be dealt by Gavi. It's an institutional response to the pandemic. The problem is, are we effective? Have we actually learned the lesson? So it's like the essay topic, right? You cannot step into the same river twice. We should have learned by now that the developed nations should be hand-holding the developing nation. None of us are safe till all of us are safe. So in spite of the first, second wave lessons, still we are doing the same things. So actually we are not learning anything. So that global leadership has to be invoked by probably India. India has the opportunity to spearhead that solution, because we have Vaccine Maitri. Vaccination, India is exporting vaccines to the least developed or developing nations. So that is Vaccine Maitri. Like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, we are exporting vaccinations because they don't have the capacity to produce. Prime Minister, whenever you hear such unique terms, Modi. Okay. Except Sarvajana Sukhina Bhavantu, all these are Upanishad terms, right? Yeah, clear? Yes, I listed this article under suggested articles. Article is also, I don't know why Hindu is publishing these 2 articles, but we'll see first. The Anganwadis. What is the role of Anganwadi? Pretty straightforward article. No major explanation needed. One thing is, health is a state subject. Health is a state subject. Anganwadis, the salaries and all these things are more or less decided by state government. The salaries of many state Anganwadi workers is very dismal, very, very low, 6,000, 8,000, 3,000 also. So it's very, very bad. The kind of work these ASHA workers do and the money they get are totally opposite. But still, they are the cornerstone of India's primary health care. Literally, not even the primary healthcare centers, even corner to them is ASHA workers are Anganwadi centers. Government schemes are dependent on Anganwadi workers. Whenever you talk about society, women and children, malnourishment, stunting, or ICDS schemes, IMR, MMR, National Family Health Survey, population control, every time you invoke these, ASHA workers are Anganwadi workers. Without them, a lot of things won't be possible. Even polio vaccination, a lot of vaccinations for the children are under ASHA workers. So they are like the indispensable part of Indian healthcare system. They have to have good kind of institutional support. Here also the problem is they don't have good salaries. They are not trained properly because the state does not feel that they deserve to be paid more or they deserve to be trained better. But if you actually do them, that is Cuban model. What do? Cuba believes in prevention is better than cure. So every week they go into these colonies or areas, slums, and they discuss with the individuals, not only with the females or children, but with all the people in the families. So every street have designated ASHA worker. Let's imagine he or she will be speaking to the elderly, men, everyone, do you have any problems? Are you developing any symptoms? Are you okay? So the prevention is better than cure. In the initial days itself, you will have some kind of idea. Let's imagine someone is coughing from last 3 or 4 days. It's better to get him tested that he might have TB. It is in very initial days, right? So such kind of thought process will be developed. But unfortunately, ASHA workers or Anganwadi centers do not have infrastructure even for the existing schemes. Many Anganwadis don't have separate toilets, sinks, cooking area, lot of problems. It's a whole different topic. Now, what are they trying to tell? They are trying to tell that for early childhood care and education, which is NEP 2020, National Education Policy 2020 concept. This one, early childhood care and education, ECCE. This is 0 to 3.
Yes.
Okay, 0 to 3 years of care is early childhood care and education. For that to be successful, Anganwadi centers should have a lot of support systems. No. Why do you think that policymakers, the state is not supporting them enough? It's a welfare state, right? Almost all states in India are welfare states. Every state wants to project itself as a savior of the people.
What is the private stuff?
No, they're purely government, properly government.
They don't want to alter the status quo.
They don't want to alter the status quo. Okay.
चलता है चलने दो. That kind of thing. So,
If it's not broken, don't repair it
yes,
or
sir.
don't change it.
Yes.
So something is working, let it work.
Yes, sir.
So the government teachers or Anganwadi workers or government employees, these are like horses, right? They will be with the system forever. We can squeeze as much as possible from their work. So government teacher will be allotted different kind of works. Or Anganwadi worker will be forced to do a lot of things. She has to take care of polio, ICDS, TB campaigning, population control, yes, IMR, MMR, institutional delivery, promotion. Everything is thrown on the shoulders of Anganwadi worker. Recently, if you observe, even COVID tests were put on the shoulders of Anganwadi workers. So there were some social media reports which shows that they were not even given the disposable gloves. All they were given is a this IR gun and swabs to be collected. So why will they risk their lives? Right? Even if they want to, genuinely, they should be protected well. They should be. We don't even have data, right? How many ASHA or Anganwadi workers died in the country due to COVID? We don't have such kind of data. Yes. So a lot of institutional support can be created. Then that will motivate the women to be serving the nation better. So states should spend more money on health and education. Prevention is always better than cure. So when all the things culminate, for example, ASHA workers, infrastructure, prevention is better than cure, yoga, meditation, Fit India, Stand Up India. So when you bring all these things together, they will create a synergy. They will create a healthy society. Yes or no? Right now we are working in silos.
Yes.
So that silo culture should go away. It should be synergized. Then things will make more sense. Clear? Okay. Cooperative societies work well when they are outside the government control, just like ISRO. Yes or no? ISRO is the only organization which is not under the control of IAS officers. And ISRO is working fantastically.
Sir, even BARC is under IAS organization.
Maybe I think bureaucratic red tapeism will always be there. Right? So I'm not saying that all other organizations are doing fantastically or ISRO positive. So the concept here is cooperative society should be as free as possible. He's trying to link a lot of things. He's trying to make it as complicated as possible, but we'll try to take the major takeaways. What is the purpose of cooperative societies? So to bring a group of people, right, with a similar interests and to scale up. Scaling up is a real big problem. He also gives us a data that no single cooperative society in India is even in the top 250. GDP wise or turnover wise or size wise, we are somewhere in the top 300s. So cooperative society has a lot of potential or scaling up to do in India. But what are the most famous cooperative societies in India? Almost all your dairies, Karimnagar Dairy, Telangana Dairy, Vijaya, yes, a lot of milk dairies are cooperative societies. Agriculture wise,
I saw the cooperative banks.
cooperative banks, okay. Okay, but Maharashtra Cooperative Bank recently has gone for bankruptcy, right? See, cooperative societies are cooperative when cooperatives when institutionalized, there is no guarantee that they will be legitimate or they will have that scaling up potential. So let's say Bandhan Bank or some other cooperative bank only. Bank, it has competed with our international banks. So once you scale up a cooperative society, there needs to be either of leadership or institutional support, right? So probably for India, what works is this, pockets of cooperatives rather than scaled up cooperatives. So Amul is super duper success story, right? All of us know, but still we use all brands. Geographical restrictions might be there. Scaling up is not universal, right? Even if you see the Vargas Kiran story also, the Patels of that particular area, he bonded with the farmers of that particular area, and that took off. But once they started scaling up, it did not go so well with other cooperatives. They have their own issues, their own stories, right? So the summary is cooperatives are always created with good intentions. So what should be done is probably use technology to make sure that there is no misuse, abuse of the cooperative societies. Whenever he talks about RBI being over controlling and all those things, I can show same number or similar number of cases where cooperative societies have been fooled,
Yes.
or frauds have happened, and that created a distrust in the mind of the people. Now, if you see FPOs, farmer producer organization, is kind of cooperative only. We're trying to encourage them to come together, FPOs. So for all those things, we need kind of control of the state. So the true scale of cooperative societies is not realized in India because of lot of factors, lot of conflicts, lot of issues. So that's one way to take. I don't think that's very important. This one, yes, we have tons and tons of diplomacies, right? Mango diplomacy, panda diplomacy. Whenever you give mango, it's mango diplomacy. So UAE emperor likes mangoes, India sends mango diplomacy. China to Russia, that is diplomacy. Water diplomacy. So that is totally useless. But what he's trying to tell you is that a Islamic country, he's stereotyping or no, I don't know, but he uses that line. It is also an Islamic country. It's very for Islamic number of diploma or graduates. So he has a number of years. So that's a good thing, right? And India-UAE relations are something to be considered. Prelims question: is UAE a member of Abraham Accords?
Yes.
Is UAE a member of Abraham Accords? Mediator. Okay. So center is trying to do the firefighting. We will discuss the Naga article one day. We will no issues. I don't need to explain anything, right? Yes. This is something new for me. I mean, not about Jacqueline, but there is a 9 lakh cat. There is a cat worth of 9 lakhs, and that is available in India. That is some new news to me, right? 9 lakhs for a cat. Just remember, Salafi Wahhabism is a strain of Islam. Okay, it's one interpretation of Islam. It is mostly in Saudi Arabia, or the radicalization. It's it's the extreme kind of Islam interpretation. So that is something that has to be understood. Why? Because in India we normally encourage Sufism.
Yes, sir.
Yes, but Wahhabism is available in pockets of Uttar Pradesh. Yes. So if you are promoting Salafi Wahhabism, it has a chance of going for
Radicalization.
extreme kind of interpretations of Islam. You have to be exactly like this. You have to do this. You have to do that. Okay. Whereas Sufism encourages love, peace, and all those things. So that is one thread. So recently, a Sri Lankan person was lynched in Pakistan. So the Talibanization of Pakistan is under process. Okay. So whenever there is poverty, some religious head will be identified with a radical tendency. He will be given a lot of funds, and he will start spreading that kind of radical Wahhabism. So what will be the impact? Talibanization of Pakistan. That will be a security threat to India as well. Okay, so that will have a lot of ramifications. The best case scenario is Indonesia, because after 2014 tsunami, I told you multiple times also. After 2014 tsunami, there was one particular mosque which was not flooded. It survived the tsunami and the floods. So it was considered as a divine intervention. And the mosque head, or the person who came there, is a radical kind of fellow. He took in charge, and now one of the largest footholds of ISIS is in Indonesia. So these things don't take a huge amount of time to accelerate. What is CCTNS? Crime and Criminal Tracking Network System. Almost all the police stations in the country are interlinked using CCTNS, Crime and Criminal Tracking Network System. That means if you have seen the Telugu movie Khaki or Tamil movie Khaki, yes, Karthi movie, right? You have to say, let's say you are having a fingerprints in Gujarat. I have to send a request to the Gujarat Police Department. Then they will see whether the fingerprint is matching or not, and all these things. This is old technology. Right now, all the FIRs, all the fingerprint database, everything, photos, everything that is collected will be uploaded onto Crime and Criminal Traffic Network System. So if I search certain parameters, if your name is in the list anywhere in the country, the police station will also come to know that you are a existing criminal or you have a criminal record, and so on and so forth. It has a lot of ramifications. It has a lot of advantages. So we will take it in the positive light. Right, almost out of all the police station, 18,000 police stations, 16,000 police stations are something are under Crime and Criminal Traffic Network System. Yes. Coming to privacy, yeah. Government will have regulations, right? Only police officers will access something like that. Next is this one. It is as old as TED Talks. In 2010 also, California, many cities in the country have tried to do this. They have created this crime route map. So if you are a traveler to, let's say, to Hyderabad, so it will show you the hotspots within the Hyderabad where the chances of crimes are higher, or areas where more FIRs are registered, or areas where more chain snatching is happening. So it will encourage you to avoid such kind of routes. So the same details can also be used by the police officers to create heat maps. Like with these parts of Hyderabad is always under conflict. So the same is applied for accidents.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Accident hotspots, crime hotspots. So crime can be identified. Then that will the patrolling in that particular area will increase. So automatically crime rates will come down. The best thing that Hyderabad police will do is fix 2 CCTV cameras in that junction. Yes or no? Automatically crime rate will come down. Yes or no? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Once you know that there is a CCTV camera, automatically crimes have to come down, right? You will be identified in one way or the other. So you can write that as a police reform, smart police, SMART, smart police. That is also given by Prime Minister. Smart police, sensitive. What are they? There is a parameter. Smart police. So police have to be very proactive. They have to be smart. Technology will make them even smarter. Crime rate will come down. Do you think that crime rate in Hyderabad has come down? Sure. No.
No empirical data.
No empirical data for you. Okay. Bike thefts in Hyderabad has come down. Any idea? No. Why? I think they have, right? CCTV cameras. Hyderabad is going to be one of the most surveilled cities in the world. So, if anything happens to you, they will know who did something to you.
So I saw an article where Kejriwal was claiming that Delhi is the
Most-
most surveilled.
Hyderabad will be one of the most. We cannot beat Delhi, right?
Claiming and really happening are two different things.
40% of CCTV cameras in Delhi don't work. It's like,
Showcase.
yeah. And the most important thing for the CCTV camera is response, right? If a crime is happening, you have to convict him, or if it is in the process, you have to reduce it. Do you think we are in that position where we will reduce the crimes? No. Conviction rates might increase. You cannot escape the law. Yes, but is it reducing the crimes? That is something that has to be seen. But internationally, there is, there is a reverse movement, or what we call as hatred towards this kind of surveillance technique. Because once you set up the CCTV cameras, then you will think of installing artificial intelligence. Right? You want to make the system as efficient as possible. That will have a lot of ramifications. Boston, other cities, they are trying to roll back this CCTV camera approach. So that is not the best way, right? The best way always is to have ground level reinforcements. People should know the constables. Every street should at least, there should be a dedicated constable, right? The beat, what we call as beat constable. He should be in touch with the local community. That is what they are trying to do in Delhi. All the senior citizens during COVID pandemic, they were inquired by the constables. Are you okay? Are you happy? Right? So the bond between the society and the police officer should be developed at the lowest levels. Only then people will tell you openly, freely that there is a crime happening. Right now, you are not even friendly, or you are afraid to go to the police station. You don't know what police is. Yes? Yes or no? Normally speaking, God forbid, if you never want to enter a police station. Yes or no? Unless there is a crime or something. But friendly policing, that link between the society and police officers has to be established. Crimes will automatically come down. People informants, yes or no? Any police officer with a good number of informants is considered as best police officer. The more number of informants, the better you are. Okay, informants will depend on you only when you develop that rapport. Let's imagine the entire society working for you. That will be a good amount of policing. Okay, we'll continue the discussion tomorrow. Yes, yes, please.
That cannot be practically possible.
Which one?
The police and the people rapport.
Why?
Because already police will be in some huge stress and the government officials. So apart from that, development of friendship is slightly difficult. And moreover, it also people can